Hello and welcome to the Warp Shelf. I'm Frank Duran.
I'm Deshaun Vasquez.
Where two artists reach out from our very packed shelves to pick up something and decide if it belongs on your shelf.
If it's worth taking with you.
If it's worth taking with you. If it's worth taking it back. Today, guys, we're starting a series. We're taking on a big project. So welcome to the first step. Welcome to our it's sort of a film club, sort of right here. We're gonna try to keep up with us. We're going to watch the AFI's top 100 American movies of all time. Now you could go on their website and they actually have a checklist right there on the website for the thing. So it's kind of fun. We're not sponsored by AFI. I think this is one of the more solid lists.
Yeah, this was something that I remember when we were in school, we were handed printouts for these lists, specifically the ones that were like the top 5 of every genre.
Yeah.
And I still had that checklist in my drawer from like 10 years ago.
And we definitely, our original idea was to do the IMDb
top 250.
Top 250, which is definitely my favorite list. It's the list that I grew up trying to conquer, you know, like, but I think as an exercise for me and you, it's actually pretty good. This AFI one, trying to delve into our American history, in film, in cinema.
And also, like, as much as we like IMDb, it's one of those things where the list is constantly shifting because it's
based
user
on
voted.
Votes. Yeah.
So, and on top of that, you sometimes get films that are a little high on that list or don't belong on that list, but it's like a recent thing that like studios are trying to push.
Yes.
So they give it some more votes that they shouldn't.
Yeah.
Bots are very much a thing.
It's very much a thing. And I think that this is less influenced in a way, you know, like, but definitely very American focused, which I do want to point out right away before we start this 100 movie list, is that it is just American cinema, which is not all of cinema. That's not everything. That's just a tiny bit of it.
Yes, absolutely.
Like very tiny bit. They're all over the world. There's so many great filmmakers. And it's one of those things that if you were not open to it, you were just missing out on so much. So we are definitely not saying not to watch foreign films here. We are doing this American list because it is pretty quintessential, and I think they'll hit home for a lot of people with these types of things.
And then we can talk about stuff that maybe we can bring up. Do we think even deserves to be on the list?
Yes.
Because I'm sure there'll be stuff like further up that maybe we're not crazy about. It's like, oh, you could replace that with this. Or maybe this is kind of outdated. It doesn't really belong here anymore.
And I think it, has a goal. You guys can watch along with us. You can check off the list on the website, and then you can watch with us to figure out if if these do belong on this list in here, if they belong on your shelf. We're basically going to go from 100 to 1. And we've already kind of done a few of these. We've already, obviously, guys, we've done episodes on a few of these.
Any of the ones where we've done straight up episodes on them by themselves, especially.
Yes.
We'll probably skip. We've already kind of crossed that off. I think for works of, I think that's a caveat where we can
finally concentrate
laser
on the
focus on the one thing. Yeah.
I think that's actually a good thing, to be able to get down and dirty on just the one film. But if we've done it before, we will not be doing it again, but we'll mention it when we come to that, that time on the list. So guys, snuggle up, grab some snacks. I'm sure,
because this first one's a long one.
This is a long one. That's what definitely a lot of these movies on this list. Long movies. No question, American movies aren't afraid to be a wee bit long. And I mean, it's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing, and we're going to talk about it today. Ben-Hur. Now, Ben-Hur is definitely one of those things that in film school, it's brought up.
Yeah.
It's brought up almost immediately, as one of these great epics of the time. And it definitely saved a studio. MGM was basically going to go out of business, and they took this $75 million bet of Ben-Hur. They were like, this is going to be a fucking, it's going to destroy the box office. This is a blockbuster before blockbusters, and it really was, is that this made $150 million at the box office, which today would be bonkers money. To put it in perspective, Sonic the Hedgehog 2, which is a sequel, so they already know what it is has made 70 million at its box office on the first
and
weekend.
That's 2022 money.
Yeah, it's 2022 money. That's with a lot of inflation. Now, when we're talking like 150 million back in the day, damn, inflation's crazy.
1956.
Yeah, 1956. Now, I think there's a couple reasons why it's brought up in film school is because it definitely is one of those movies that's just an impressive thing to watch. It captures the essence of early films where they were putting a spectacle on screen, like there's no time. It's like, like they're trying to bring this like awe-inspiring thing to the screen,
which is definitely something to think about in a modern context, given like how snobby we can be about modern cinema now. We're just like, it's just all spectacle, it's all thrill, no fill, no substance, or just like a lot of early gems for like in Hollywood history tended to aim for big like spectacle as a storytelling idea,
and it's pretty wild here because it's like several feats of like cinematography and also for just it's cinema in general and
also it's a remake,
and it's right? They've done Ben-Hur has been told several times.
Yeah, it's a remake of a silent film.
And you're like, oh. So that's the thing. It's sort of like one of these like early 1950s remakes where they were like, yeah, we can make this again. They were like,
we have color and sound. It's a whole different experience.
But it's so funny because that's what everyone always complains. Oh, they're making another remake. They've been making remakes from the beginning.
Yeah,
from the beginning.
Like a good one to bring up is that William Wyler, who directed this, wanted to outdo Cecil B. DeMille's Ten Commandments.
Yes,
which he directed both versions. You want to talk about that? A remake that doesn't happen that often is a remake from the same director. It's just like, I'm gonna do it again.
Now let me do that again. Other than The Ring. Right? Or is it the Grudge? The Grudge. The guy did the American remakes, and you're like, that's crazy.
Which I guess it's better than handing it off if it has to happen.
Well, like think about let the right one in. If they let, it's like if they
did remake Let the Right One In.
That's what I mean. But like if they had given it to the same director again, like we might have not gotten. It would have been a different movie, I think, but Let the Right One.
Let Me In's not bad.
Yeah,
it just doesn't have the same magic. Like we love Matt Reeves in this house.
We do love Matt Reeves. Yeah, I'm not shooting down Matt Reeves. It's just not his absolute best.
Remake of a 1925 silent film. William Wyler wanted to outdo like the Ten Commandments, which is also another huge biblical epic with Charlton Heston.
And what's so funny is that like they say it in the IMDb like pages and everything is that Kirk Douglas was up for this role, and then Kirk Douglas did get this role, and then afterward worked on Spartacus to like kind of fight this movie, because this movie was in theaters for like a year. It was, they would just leave it up. You would just go see Ben-Hur.
It would just be a thing you would do.
Yeah.
And that sort of speaks to like the early conceit of film as like a coming attraction.
Yes, exactly. Like it's in town. It's like the movie's in town. We have the reel,
Exactly.
Like, come see it. It's not like now where you just download it from Disney servers and they're like, thank you very much for $15,000. All right. And
there is a great comment that William Wyler made like years after like Ben-Hur's success. He joked that like it took a Jew to make a good movie about Christ. And I'm like,
oh man, I think you have to bring that up.
That's fucking funny.
That's
really fucking funny. That's a flex and a half.
It is. So I want to bring that up right here, as I think that's kind of an important part of this movie is that this is a Christian movie, in a weird way, but from a Jewish perspective, which is so strange.
It's based on a novel.
Yes.
So it's not part of like the literary canon, I suppose. It's a spin-off, not by the original creators. So whether or not you consider it canon is up to you.
The manga was better. Yeah. And the manga's the only thing
this is
canon.
Way better, and this is way better than manga. I mean, the Jesus cameo was great the first time, but we really did doing the crucifixion. Pretty, I don't know, a lot of fan service there. I don't think that was necessary.
God. Okay, but That's the kind of the funny thing about this movie. Is that it definitely treats Jesus like Superman at the end of Shazam, where they literally like don't show his face. He shows up several times, and like it's funny. I think that's why one of the major reasons why you should watch Ben-Hur. So guys, you're watching this episode, you're like, why are they talking about Ben-Hur? You're like, because there's so many movies that are referencing Ben-fucking-Hur. It's like,
yep, it's
one of those crazy.
It's one of those foundational films where it just, you can find its DNA in so much other stuff. And I imagine most of the time, especially now, they don't even know what they're pulling from.
No, there's definitely George Lucas is referencing this so much in the directed George Lucas's ones.
Yes.
So
A New Hope in the prequels.
In the New Hope in the prequels, he's the whole time is referencing Ben-Hur, almost so much that I was watching Ben-Hur and I was like, ha, Star Wars reference, and I was like,
wait a minute.
I was like, wait a fucking second, and it's like. And it's not just like, of course, the chariot racing's pod racing, which is the obvious comparison. But there's so many moments where where Marcus, well, of course, they're like, of course, closer than brothers, you know, like they're best friends. Marcella. And Ben-Hur and him are like the closest of bros, not gay. Not gay.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's definitely a big energy of like, don't worry about it. And you're like,
yeah, the whole like,
guys.
The way they stare at each other wistfully and they're just like, saving her life is the best thing I ever did. And they're just like, would you two kiss already and get it over with?
Would you guys fuck? Like, Jesus. But it's like one of those things that like, I was definitely watching this movie being like, this is just them being like, no, two best friends. They die together. They live together the whole time. Just best friends.
They were roommates.
They were roommates. Oh my God. They were roommates. But it's like, it's definitely that type of movie where you're just like, yes, so many close male relationships you got there, Ben-Hur. Like, nope, this is the 50s, not gay. You know, like, and you're just like, I actually kind of would love that, like, big epic remake, but Ben-Hur's just gay. Like, I would love that.
The whole thing is just queer as fuck. Just to
it
make people mad.
I mean, it's very queer coded.
I mean, yeah,
and just kind of like, okay.
Just the whole like Marcella's really just mad just because it's just unrequited love.
Yes.
Just like, you spurned me, so I'm gonna ruin your whole. You spurned me, so I'm gonna ruin your whole fucking life.
Seriously, he's like, damn. But it's absolutely that whole relationship is just Obi-Wan and Anakin in the prequels.
Yep.
Even the Anakin line, if you're not with me, you're against me, comes from Ben-Hur. And there's also a line where Charlton Heston's, where are they? He like drops his voice, and that was an absolute Batman moment. So I was like, holy crap, that's like Michael Keaton's, Tim Burton's Batman, and also Christian Bale and Christopher Nolan's Batman.
And Christopher Nolan strikes me as exactly the type of
guy
filmmaker
who'd be like,
of course I was pulling Ben-Hur for my Batman movies.
And then I think there's a couple moments at the end where of course the Marvel movies that is absolutely pulling from this by just being like, because they treat Jesus like he's a Marvel character you don't want to show the whole movie because, you know, like
I literally wrote down in my notes, Jesus is fan service as a bullet point. Because that's kind of what it is that you could, I feel like they shot this movie in a way that like maybe they could have cut out all the Jesus stuff if they really wanted to, you know, like they really wanted to. It's funny because the original novel and the original movie does have a subtitle. It's called Ben-Hur, A Tale of Christ.
Yes, and that it says it in the movie.
Yeah,
which by the way, this movie starts with a goddamn overture. It just starts and it says title card overture,
and it goes on for like fucking 10 minutes,
and you're just like, oh, this is why this movie's 3 hours long.
And then there's like a few minute intermission, which I know people have argued that we should probably bring back as like blockbusters become longer. I mean, I could take it or leave it. I wouldn't mind if it was there.
I mean, I definitely I love Batman, but at the end I was like, I gotta pee, man. I gotta fucking pee. Like,
first vengeance, then pee.
Yes, exactly. And I think that's definitely not a bad thing if they brought it back.
I do want to bring this up. So like the overture was nice, and then we begin. How fucking beautiful is this movie? Because you watched it on HBO Max, or did you watch it somewhere else?
Max.
Yeah.
HBO Max.
So for that, they're pulling from like the recent Blu-ray, which was a very expensive remaster that they did for it a few years ago, where it was an 8K restoration from the original negative. It was the first time the film was
looks great.
It was the first time the film was ever presented in its original aspect ratio for home media. So you're just like, wow. So watching it on a 4K TV, you're like, amazing.
Amazing. It definitely the absolute spectacle of everything. Like when they're doing the wide shots here, they're just flexing on people. It's one of those things that this movie, it's like it shows a wide shot, and sometimes you can like in modern movies you can be like, that's where the green screen starts and that's all CGI. Here it's like, nope, they made it and it's all here and it goes all the way fucking back for some goddamn reason, you know, like for the market scenes, for like just random shit.
It's a 65 millimeter print.
Even the first couple shots when they're like, who are you? Joseph of Nazareth. This is my wife, Mary. And you're just like, there's 40, 50 people behind them. Like, talk about a world where we don't use extras like we used to. Like we don't use extras like this anymore, where we were like, yeah, we're making a big epic scene. It's got wide shots, so we need like 50 to 150 people. You're like, nowadays they'd be like, we need 6. And we're going to copy you 6 times.
Yeah, the last time I kind of felt that, like, sense of scale, like, damn, this is a lot of people, was probably when Dark Knight Rises came out with, like, the big end scene there.
Like, that is one of those where you're like, that's a lot of fucking extras there. You know? Like, a lot of combat extras that actually learned some choreography, you know? Like,
so the restoration for this cost $1 million.
Oh, my fuck.
Yeah, just for the restoration for this.
It's worth it, though.
Oh, yeah.
This is a gorgeous print, guys. Like, if you couldn't get the Blu-ray, it's good on HBO Max. It looks great. Sounds great.
It definitely speaks to the
sound. I thought the sound design shines through on this copy.
Well, you also have a nice sound bar.
Yeah, it does. It do. And it really shows it off.
It definitely speaks to like the quality and the fidelity of like actual physical film, because we run into this a lot with restorations, is that when you remaster old films, especially something like this, which is just like a big epic 65 millimeter print, it lends itself so well to like 4K and stuff. Like this was an 8K restoration. We're not even there yet.
Oh, we're almost there. We're almost there. We got the 6Ks at work, and you're like, okay, who's asking for 6K? Goddamn.
I know.
But it's kind of a wild movie in not only just in scale alone, and I've already said that, but it's like one of the main examples is we have, of course, the chariot scene, super famous, absolutely the scene that everyone fucking remembers from this movie is the chariot scene. 15,000 extras in that scene. They had to take buses to the stadium that they built for this. It was accurate, you know, like an accurate stadium that they built, and they would bring 15,000 people in every day, and it's something like took 57 days or something like that to film this. The race took 5 weeks to film. 5 weeks to film. It's crazy. It's crazy.
An entire indie film could shoot in 5 weeks.
Jesus Christ, you know, like they would be like, we're done.
Yeah, it's over.
I shot this, and you'd be like, Jesus Christ.
And it definitely shows on screen.
Yes.
Because that sequence is fantastic, and it still holds up for the most part.
I say it all the time. It's one of my favorite things about film is seeing how much effort goes into each frame of a movie. You know, like, and this is a well-written movie. It's like, I do think that it does waste some time. It's definitely one of my nitpicks is that it definitely is just like, we did spend a fucking $1 million on this shit, so you're gonna watch this scene.
Yeah, like, it definitely has that like wistful pacing from a film from this era.
Yeah, like it's like it's a 3-hour movie, and you're kind of like, we could have taken an hour out of this. But it's like, it's still epic. It's big. It's huge. It's like every frame is almost a painting, you know? Like,
yeah, that's the thing. Like I had messaged you yesterday while I was rewatching it. It's just like, I'm not even really feeling the time here. No. I'm in. I wasn't even multitasking.
I was building Gundam.
Of course you were.
I was building Gundam. But it's a good watch. That's the thing, is I didn't expect to like the watch, especially when they like started off with, I must have forgotten it was a super hard Christian movie, you know? Like, I really did like forget about that. And when I started up, I was like, right. This has a whole beginning with just describing Jesus, like, and then like But like, it's so funny because that has nothing to do with Ben-Hur. It's just introducing the king that will hang out with Ben-Hur later, and you're just like, and then of course it's like, and of course it ties into seeing Jesus later. But you're just like,
for a movie with Christ in the subtitle, he's barely in it. Jeez.
I know. I bet that's like actually somebody's complaint.
Yeah.
They're like they didn't show Christ enough. But I kind of dig the Marvel approach. Like, I know that Marvel steals it, but like I'm gonna call it the Marvel approach to to
just
Jesus.
for shorthand.
Yeah, for shorthand.
Yeah, I like the fact that they didn't show his face and they kept it ambiguous.
The worst one is when they do the Pontius Pilate shot and he's in the shot and they just darken the frame right over his face. I that was the only time that I was like, we could have changed the shot, guys.
Yeah.
Maybe like if you wanted that.
Do they ever actually refer to him by name? Because I know they tiptoe around it a lot. No. Like, oh, it's a rabbi from Nazareth.
No, they say. I think they say Jesus of Nazareth at one point. Like they're like they do say his name, but like you're right. They like skip around it. Like everyone's like like the king that has come. It's like it's all these things. But I don't really know what the lesson is. If like, that's the thing, it's like it's a good move. It's funny because you're used to Christian media being like, there's a lesson. If we're gonna teach you about Christ, there's a goddamn lesson, and there's really not here. In the end, it's just kind of like
other than
Christ was there and he saved people.
Other than like small acts of kindness, I guess.
Yes, I guess do small acts of kindness to your fellow man.
Because you do have that bit where it's just like he gave me water, and without that, I would not be here.
Right, and it's about like not dehumanizing people and stuff like that.
So there's something there.
There's something there, but it's funny because that's not what this story is. It's so classic Hollywood where they're like, no, there could be a lesson, but who gives a shit about that? We got fighting with my best friend. We got falling in love with this lady. We got, classic romance, it's like got all the the classic Hollywood, this is what makes an engaging fucking movie, and that kind of makes it why it's so great is it is kind of pure entertainment in a way, in a very serious way. It's just like, no, this is an entertainment movie. We're gonna amp some shit up, here we go,
even if they're just gonna sit around and talk, you're gonna look at this set.
Look at this fucking set.
Look at all these people walking around. What are they even doing?
And I feel like most of the budget was spent on those white horses. They were like, damn, we need to get enough horses that we can make them walk the horses into this scene and we can pet the horses on screen. And you're just like, yeah, that must have cost a lot. That was
and you could tell there's a little more ad lib there, where they're just reacting to the horses, what they're doing, just stop biting.
Yeah, right.
Cut it
out. I will say right here, right now, there's a little blackface in this movie. Definitely, I don't like that. It's definitely huge. Oh god,
the Sheik especially is played by a Welsh actor in brownface, and it's
and of course the actor's good, but you're like, why the fuck did we have to do this?
And he won an Oscar for it.
No,
he did.
Yeah, because it won 11. So something that should be brought up about Ben-Hur. It's one of 3 movies to win 11 Oscars. We already talked about this with the Oscars episode. Titanic, Ben-Hur, and Lord of the Rings, Return of the King.
Yeah.
But more impressive for Ben-Hur, there wasn't as many categories as there was with Titanic and Return of the King. And so that means they won pretty much everything that night. Every little thing was won by Ben-Hur.
One of the ones was he did win Best Supporting Actor for that part.
It's rough because you're like, he's doing a good job, but he's in blackface.
That's the one distracting thing. He's so charming, and it is a legitimately good performance, but you're just like, oh god.
Yeah, it's definitely
that was the one thing that pulled me out. I'm like, wow, I'm really into this, and then not 2 minutes after I messaged you, I'm like, oh! Now it feels like the 50s.
And I think that's kind of going to be sort of a problem with this list is some of these movies are a little older and there's some offensive fucking shit in these movies. And you're just like, not okay, guys. Not okay. And what's even worse is that they had a scene earlier where they had plenty of black extras to do the African slave scene, but they were a main actor being black. No. And you're like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
What the fuck? It just feels ass backwards.
It's
and you're like, what the fuck?
Yeah, it's very like back and forth because you have like you do have a Jewish director doing it, and you do have an Israeli actress playing his wife, so you're like, okay, for the 50s, that's kind of impressive.
I will say, though, if there's anybody who... I thought everyone's acting in this was pretty damn strong. Mm-hmm. If there's anybody that kind of sucked, it was his wife, though. She's like sort of smiling in some scenes, you know, like she's having a good time on set, you know, sort of. But like during a scene where they're in the leper's pit, she's like, you know, doing this like side smirk, like she's having a good time instead of being in a leper's pit, you know.
Yeah, like, I sometimes forget like how good of an actor Charlton Heston is, just because his public persona after the prime of his career sort of overshadow it. Like even forget like the sus stuff, just remember he was just such a weird dude.
Yeah.
In general, and everyone always loved to like. I just think of like Ralph Garman's impression of him all the time. And you forget how good he is, and you just see him. You're like, God damn it! It's like between this 10 Commandments, which I know you haven't seen, and like early Planet and like the original Planet of the Apes, you're like, damn, he was good.
Yeah,
and there's big fucking baby blues.
They serious baby blues.
Oh,
like, yeah, he's a. That's the thing. He's an instant hero here. Mm-hmm. You know, like even when he's like doing these questionable things, you're like instant hero. Yeah, like there he is. You know, like, and of course it's so funny the whole time they call him young, and I'm like, this guy looks old as fuck. You know, like, but he was.
I will adopt you as I will adopt you as my son. Yes. This 40-year-old man.
I was like, what the fuck is happening here? Is this adult adoption? I don't like this.
Reminds me of the What We Do in the Shadows joke, because it's like I was turned into a vampire when I was 16, and that is why I always look 16. Of course, life was much harder for a 16-year-old back then. And it's like Jermaine Clement, who's like looked 40 for most of his life.
You're just like, what the fuck? I think that's so true though. Even like if you look at 80s pictures of like 80s high school kids, you're like, those are 30-year-olds. you're like, what the fuck? Those aren't high school kids.
So it wasn't just the movies lying to us.
Yeah, right. It's like, no, they looked really old. It's like, thank God for healthcare and getting rid of some processed food, guys. Let's stop aging as much.
Yeah.
But it's like, yeah, now kids are just looking younger and younger, and you're like, there you go, live longer. Don't fucking look like the shriveled up 80s kids. and Charlton Heston, who's even was cast because he was younger than Kirk Douglas and Leslie Mann, you said?
Leslie Nielsen.
Leslie Nielsen. It's like, which also would have been fun too. I think that would have been cool, but
and it would have been nice because I think Leslie Nielsen, especially like later in his career, definitely got typecasted as like the funny guy.
Yeah.
When he had more range,
like
than
an
really
absolute
gave her
stage background.
Yeah, absolutely. Like watch Airplane and then watch his role in Creepshow to show like the duality of Leslie Nielsen.
What? Speaking of a play, though, this is definitely. I mean, this is the age of that where like there was this like very small distinction between putting on a play and the movies, you know, but of course you could do this spectacle where this does feel like a play at times, you know, like it definitely like these big sets that they're running around, people make entrances from like top balconies like it's a fucking play or something like that, and you know, like and you know, without going into close-up shot, you know, so, because they keep it wide because the sets bomb, you know, like they're like nah, we ain't cutting in. Not
we want you to see this shit. Look at this
shit. But it's one of those things that I do think wide shots can be boring, and I think that they do a good job.
Yeah, they can feel very static.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those things that feel a lot of people have problems with watching old movies, is that like a lot of wide shots to show off all the work they did, but that's not what modern audiences want or get most of the time.
It's definitely a case of like modern tastes and sensibilities now.
Yeah,
like you and I can appreciate just like, look at this is beautiful, you can see the blood, sweat, and tears in every fucking frame of this goddamn thing. We're definitely going to feel this like further up in the list when we get to Lawrence of Arabia, because that's just like, look at the desert.
Look at it, it's huge, it's fucking big,
look how beautiful it is.
But it's it is a beautiful movie the whole entire time. I will give it to the director here. And I know that there's a story of him trying to like hand off the chariot scene to another director, but the other director was like, nah, bro, you got this. Like, you're good.
It does like inform how many like revenge tales you've ever seen in film or in literature, because I had just a while back I had done like the Count of Monte Cristo, like big fucking 800-page unabridged Count of Monte Cristo for book club. And I got a lot of similar vibes here, just like this tale of revenge where like I was imprisoned for years and I vowed that I would return and have my vengeance. And somehow I also came into riches.
Yeah, right. You're like, and I'm back.
So I can help manipulate the entire situation.
I'm back, motherfucker. It's very Shakespearean, of course. It's very Shakespearean to be like, aha, I've come back to exact my revenge and now I'm cool. You know, like it's definitely very Shakespearean, and it's been around for a long time and it's done a billion times, but it's like, this is a good one, like it's very like, like you're like, all right, this all makes sense. He's been here still being a good dude all the time, like, and he's just, finding ways.
Put that on the Blu-ray. Ben-Hur is being a good dude all the time. Frank Durad. Put that on the Blu-ray.
Yeah, so William Wheeler was so impressed with David Lean's work on the Bridge of River Kwai, and he asked David Lean to do it, but what David Lean was like, William, my boy, Miller, like, you good. You got this.
You can do it.
You can do it. And he did.
I could see that conceit, though.
Yeah, right. Yeah. You're like, at the time, River Kwai was critically like, whoa, everyone was like, holy shit, River Kwai. We'll get to that, actually. It's on this list.
Oh, yeah.
It's on this list. So we'll be talking about that later on. Definitely one of those movies that I've seen a bunch, but I'm going to need a rewatch on.
Same.
Like, it's like...
Not a bunch, but like, I've seen it.
It's just been on in the background.
Yeah.
My dad and his dad are Navy guys. So they, I've seen all these old movies just running in the background sometimes, like, and you're just
it definitely helps
River
that
Kwai.
like HBO Max has like a whole Turner Classics Movies section, which is very nice.
Yes.
And those types of movies are very much like what you would see run all day on TV.
Right.
Back when I still watched cable television.
You turn on TCM and you're like, there it is. There's another black and white classic, like.
Or was it TV Land or something?
TV Land.
The TV Land. I remember TV Land always playing Batman 66 all fucking day. Always Batman 66 stuff.
Yes, love it. Now, one of my we are talking about revenge stories, and that's what works well for this. And I think it's kind of funny that like this is supposed to be a tale of Christ. And it's also one of the only Hollywood movies to be fully endorsed by the fucking Vatican for some reason. That's like one of the like major trivia bits about this is like the Vatican was like, sick, great. And you're like, this is a revenge story. What? And like, you're like,
revenge story fanfic.
Yeah, and he gets his revenge. Like, that's the real thing here. It's like, it's not like Jesus stops him and is like, yo, find forgiveness in your heart, brother. Like, nope, Jesus just misses him murking his best buddy. And then, like, comes on later and saves everybody.
He gets fucking trampled.
You're like, what?
He just gets trampled by a horse, which I do want to bring that up because
effect, dude. That's definitely one of the things here. Some amazing effects in this movie.
Yes.
Incredible effects. There's the whole boat scene that there was effects there that I was like, that's better than most horror movies. Holy fuck, that guy lost a leg,
Yeah.
And the guy who comes out with one arm missing, the bones sticking out, you're like, oh, sweet lord. and then the trampling later.
Yeah,
you're
up
like,
until that point, the
fuck.
movie's so tame that you forget that, like, oh, we can go gory. This is that type of movie.
Yeah, right.
So it's interesting. But I do want to bring up the chariot sequence again, just because there is that myth about the stuntman who died and they kept the shot in the movie. That's actually a myth.
Yeah, no, that's not.
That's been disproven.
That's not real. Like, but it's like it's definitely one of those things where these guys are actually doing these stunts most of the time. You don't see any.
Yeah.
Of course, there's no CGI, and there's no body double to like take that hit.
Yeah.
Like,
every time they cut to like a real wide, I was like really narrowing my eyes. I'm like, that's really fucking Charlton Heston on that chariot.
No, so he was already because of he learned to ride 2 horses because of the 10 Commandments, 2 horses and chariots, and then he immediately when he got on this set learned 4-horse chariot, which like first off. Isn't that the essence of like an actual Hollywood star. You're just like going around movie to movie, learning crazy skills. You know, like Andrew Garfield said this recently in one of his actors roundtables. It's his favorite part of being a main man actor is that he just gets to go to movie and they're like, hey, want to learn this like crazy skill? And you're basically James Bond now, you know, like, and you're like, yeah, sure. Yeah. You know, like that's the weird part is like a lot of these leading men have these like rich pool of weird skills, you know, like that only pertain to movies, you know, like where you're like Keanu Reeves could probably actually kill you, you know, how much training he's had with
guns and stuff like that.
Like he could actually kill you, and you can kind of see it with Charleston Heston here. He rode those horses. He's in those scenes. There's no body double. There's no fucking. It's just Heston, like and that I gotta give all the credit to that. You're like, holy shit, he didn't even like go like, no, I'm not getting on that fucking 4-horse thing. Throw another guy on there.
That's definitely that like old school Hollywood attitude, though. Just like you had no other choice. You just get in there
and you learn it. Learn 4 horses.
Just slap your cheeks and you just fucking do it.
It's crazy. Which made that whole chariot scene so much more a spectacles that you're like, holy shit. It's kind of like the same thing as like the Mission Impossible movies. You're like, well, Tom Cruise is actually doing that shit, you know? Like you're like, even if you're like, the Mission Impossible movies are kind of boring. You're like, yeah, but he actually does the stunts. You might as well watch to see.
That's literally the only appeal for me with the Mission Impossible movies. It's just like, yo, that stunt was crazy.
So true though. It's so true. I keep trying to get into it and I'm like,
they're so fucking boring, and then something really cool happens because you're like, whoa, that's impressive.
A set piece.
And now we're back to being boring as shit.
So true though. You're like, damn.
Just like even Ghost Protocol. I'm like, hey, I like Brad Bird. Just like, ooh, him climbing up that fucking skyscraper in Dubai. That's really cool. That's very dangerous, and I dig that. This is still boring. And this is the guy who did The Incredibles and The Iron Giant.
Like, what is happening? You're like, what is happening?
Yeah. But it's one of those things where you're just like, I'm sure the scene's going to be on YouTube later.
Yeah, right? I could just watch the scene on YouTube.
It's like, that's impressive.
That's impressive. And it's definitely a lot of impressive stunts here, you know, like they're absolutely doing that like boats hitting each other thing, you know, like and like a lot of actually like on set action.
I just love that we're calling the Mission Impossible movies boring and we're talking about how good Ben-Hur is.
I know, I was thinking that too. I was like, is this a weird look? Like I was like, is this a weird look? But I think that says something about Ben-Hur is that it's not a fucking like thriller, you know, like, and it still somehow held our attention better than fucking Mission Impossible did, you know, like I think that says something about the movie. Definitely,
and it also speaks to like a movie helps when it's more than just a set piece.
Yes.
If the chariot sequence was the only good thing about Ben-Hur, then it would probably be a lot more dull to watch. But it's not just about the one sequence, the select sequences.
No, it's about all the performances, and it's really about the direction. I think that this is a extremely well directed piece that knows how to not show things and not show things. Like I really love the scene where they open later on, and of course, spoilers. I don't know why I have to say that. This is fucking 1957. But they open they go to check on the mother and the wife to see if they're alive down in the prison, and they open it and they're like lepers.
Yeah,
and I love that they don't show them.
Too,
I had to play it back because I thought I had missed like a close-up shot of them being like or something like that. No, the restraint on this motherfucker not to show them till later, and like and them be as horrified of seeing people as you know, as people should be of seeing them, I guess, you know, like as this movie. I thought it was actually quite interesting that they like really leaned into this leopard plot.
Yeah, it was actually kind of scary too.
Yeah.
Just the way it's shot, it's really dark, and you see like the torch on like these slick like cave walls. You're like, this is really nice to look at. And the fact that you don't see them just makes it so much scarier.
I loved him in the like tiny little slick of the cave when it's like he had to crouch down and look through, and he's like lifting up people's things to see if they're there, you know, like kind of wild. You're like, I also think it's funny because you say it's fanfic because it is true. It's like the big resolution here is that like when Jesus died, the rains cured all the lepers, which is not a story that's told in the Bible. That's not.
Was it all the lepers or was it just them?
I won't. Like, wouldn't that be kind of fucked up, though?
It seemed like the focus was just on them because it seemed like I've repaid my kindness to you that you gave me all those years ago.
True.
And you guys have kept your own faith. So I guess that's supposed to be like what they're going for.
Yeah, I guess so. But it's kind of fucked up.
Like it seems pretty
like
contained.
all those other lepers need help, bro. Like they're living.
Oh, just because I didn't give you a glass of water.
Exactly. But like that's kind of the weird Christian.
Because I don't think the intent is that like all the lepers were suddenly cured. I think it's specifically just them because that's who they focus on.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's a good point. I didn't even think about that. I assumed they were like everyone's saved.
I figured it was like repaying the kindness back and forth.
Good job. You gave me water when I was dying.
You gave me water just like I did. Look how much you have learned here.
Here, I saved your entire life. Here.
Away with the leprosy.
Exactly. They're like, I gave something to Jesus, so he gave me something back. You're like, what the fuck? What kind of lesson is that bullshit?
Just like Jesus gave me water, so I came back for revenge and I trampled my best friend between 4 fucking horses.
On purpose. Like, it's not even like not him murdering him. He takes the whip from him and beats the shit out of him after being whipped by him, and that's when he falls and dies. And you're like, that man murdered him. Like,
it's literally a light novel title.
Right?
My friend betrayed me, so I came back for revenge and killed him in a horse race so Jesus cured leprosy. You're like, what?
You're like, oh, what the fuck? Oh my god. I mean, yeah, so it's kind of a ridiculous premise. That's the thing, is like adding Jesus as this whole like Superman thing going on, like they're like, yeah, he's just here, he's gonna do some magic.
It's just so funny. It's like fucking Luke showing up in Mando.
It's exactly, that's the thing, is like Disney has not realized how much they've been referencing Ben-Hur.
But there's also
a huge Ben-Hur reference.
There's also that modern sensibility. Like I've been making the jokes that like this is all basically just fan fiction, and it makes any sort of faith really funny if you just narrow it down to like people, just a bunch of nerds taking a story way too seriously. And I'm just like, I mean, we sort of are, and like pop culture nerds who take this shit way too seriously already sort of deify these fucking fictional characters. So it's kind of funny.
It's kind of funny. We make our own gods.
Like I'm serious, but I'm not serious. But like the line is kind of blurry.
It's blurry. It's blurry.
So funny.
And I think they address that in this movie, because they go, Ben-Hur, you are our one true god, and they like give him the crown for winning the chariot fight, which I thought was interesting. There was no, I thought they were going to go more dramatic with that like, he was going to find Jesus and he's like, you're the one true God, like I thought they were going to go harder with that. And I almost was like, wow, they had some fucking restraint with this. They could have gone like full Christian drama, and they were like, no, we still got to sell this bitch. So, and I kind of appreciate that.
Kratos at the end of the first God of War. Now you are the God of War, huh?
But I do kind of like this movie for that, where it's like it is a Christian movie and all the Christians could be like, wee! But like if you're not into that shit, you can still watch this movie and be like, that was pretty sick, bro. You fucked him up.
Like take away the subtitle, I'm sure Christians just like, oh man, I didn't know this was in the same universe.
I didn't know this was the same.
I'm just gonna keep doing this because it's so much fun to do, because it's literally what it is.
It is though. There's no story of Ben-Hur. This is not in the Bible. This is not like this is seriously just
all religions are just fandoms.
Oh my god!
I've cracked the code.
Cracked the code.
I can see the Matrix.
You didn't know this was a philosophy podcast, but we opened that shit up.
All religion is just toxic fandoms.
Oh, no! Okay, it's true though. It's true though. Like you heard of that Jesus guy? He's pretty fucking sick. Like you see all the powers he's got. Yo, Jesus' power set could beat up Wolverine. Oh my god! But they really do, like, the movie treats him as such, like it's Superman in Shazam, or even like in the early Marvel Iron Man movies, like they're like, oh, we don't want to show this character yet, but he's there, they just been doing it a lot, and it's funny because they definitely did it in like early noirs. We're not showing somebody the whole movie or something like that, but not in the same like hero sense that this is doing here, where you're like, everyone knows who it is, but we ain't gonna say it. We all know who that motherfucker is, but we ain't gonna say it.
Yeah, which
like,
you saying like the Superman and Shazam thing is a good comparison, or like it reminds me of Smallville. Every time they would do like flash forwards to the future, they would just show him from the back. You'd see the cape and the yellow S on the back of his cape. You're like,
and here it's like you see him early when he hands him the water, and it's just the back of him, and you're like, that's the boy, that's Jesus. You're like, I don't need to even know. I know it's that Jesus. And you're just like, all right. You're like, so he gave him water, okay. And then that's kind of my thing here. Is it's like it's like the religion is definitely the bookends of this, and I don't think it kills it. Is it, like where I think a lot of Christian movies can be grating because they're like, did you get the fucking lesson? Did you pick up what we were saying? If you don't turn to Jesus, fuck you. And this is definitely not that, like where they're just like, yeah, he might have been the son of God, but who knows, man? We Jews. And you're just like, all right, cool. I'm cool with that attitude,
Yeah.
Where you're just like, he may have been the Messiah, but who knows? I guess those Christians do. They definitely know, but we who knows? And I kind of dig that attitude towards this, especially for a more secular audience that this definitely was like kind of made for, like to be like.
I would say more so than the Ten Commandments. Like Ten Commandments, you can't really adapt the book of
Bible story.
Yeah, you can't really adapt the book of Exodus and have it be too secular, really.
Yeah. It's funny we're doing Ben-Hur though on Easter week. I didn't even like think about that.
Yeah,
we're doing like, holy shit, dude! Wow, we timed this out. What the fuck? We didn't do this on purpose. Unintentional, but it is sort of an Easter movie.
It's funny because that's something that Exodus, Gods and Kings tried to do.
Yeah,
where it's just like, we're gonna do the plagues, but we're gonna sort of have them be like, maybe this is what it was scientifically. You're just like, we're not. No one's coming here for this. Come on now.
No one's here for this. No one here was here for that whole movie though. That movie did terrible. That I remember.
It was bad.
I remember that's like less than Morbius. No one gave a shit, but they advertised the shit out of it. I remember seeing ads for Exodus everywhere. They were like, "Wow, we got to get people in theaters for this," and it did not work. I think they wasted that money.
Yeah,
there.
you could just stay at home and watch either version of the Ten Commandments again, or the Prince of Egypt again.
You're like, come on, you're good. Prince of Egypt, just do that one.
Yeah,
DreamWorks. But I think that one of the major things here is, and I think we already kind of brought it up, is that Heston is so damn good in this.
Yeah, he's great.
He's so damn good. Like we already said, he's good, but like I don't think you get it. You watch it and you're just like, damn, he good. Like it's kind of like watching Paul Newman in anything. You're just sitting there going, this man's a star.
They
you're
both
just sitting
look
there like,
pretty similar too.
Yeah,
they have
baby blue eyes.
Yeah, they have that similar, like the baby blues and like very similar faces.
Yes, definitely. And I do. One of the things I think I love about this is how far-reaching the touch is of Ben-Hur. It's like we already talked about the references, and we already talked about that Spartacus was made in direct competition, and then of course Spartacus spawned so many others, because that's who directed, is that Kubrick?
Spartacus was Kubrick, yeah.
Kubrick. It's like that really like. Come on, that's Kubrick's. That's the thing that made Kubrick do whatever he wanted to do. Was Spartacus. So you're like, how influential is that? Like being like, I spawned Kubrick's whole career because of this. And whole other things. And so many this type of genre where it's like, yeah, we're doing a period piece in Rome, like we're doing these like Roman period pieces, that was a big thing in the 50s, 60s.
You had stuff like Cleopatra and stuff like that, like all big period pieces.
Big period pieces, lots of extras.
And I guess nothing has really changed, because even when we still do like big period pieces that we call Oscar bait now, like the Academy's like,
it's true, they want it. They want it. They're like, give me that period piece. They're like, in Power of Dog, I'll nominate it for everything and not give it anything.
Not give it anything.
But it's a period piece. So, yeah. It's like, yeah, that's It's kind of Oscar bait now. Is to be like, we're gonna do an actually good period piece, and you're like, wow, like that's nice. Like they're all excited about.
Look at the dresses. Look at the costumes.
Look at the costumes. And I mean, it's pretty crazy here. We already talked about the stadium, but even the Jerusalem set was a 10 square block set. Can you even imagine, Day? Nowadays, they just shove you on the WB lot on like 1/4 of the lot. And they're like, you better film the whole fucking show on this one building. We'll make it different streets on each side of the building, and you just change positions all day and shoot your whole show. That's how they shot Gotham. Like, guys, I'm not even joking. If you watch the Gotham show, it's literally just the WB set, and they just like keep moving around all day. Like it is, they didn't even go anywhere, you know, like they didn't do anything else.
Yeah, I know they did a lot of like stuff in New York at first, especially for the pilot, but then after that,
they're like, and you're in WB, so we can make this for cheap.
Yep.
And it's like, it's one of those things that building their own sets for this, it's absolutely insane. It's one of the things that like MGM's basically almost failed so many times, and they finally bit the dust. And but like they were saved by Ben-Hur, but then it's funny when they were going out of business again later on, I think in the 90s, they were selling the Chariot and and like props from the set, and this Chariot fucking sold for like $4,000, and then this guy got arrested driving the Chariot on the turnpike during an oil crisis. Like he was like, I'm not paying for gas, let me ride this Chariot out here. And you're just like,
so fucking
what
funny.
The fuck? Like,
that whole oil crisis is like a big part of Licorice Pizza. It's like a whole plot.
That's so funny.
So fucking funny.
Oh my god. And it's funny we can bring up Paul Newman looking like him because Paul Newman was offered the role of Ben-Hur, and then he turned it down.
Doesn't surprise me.
He was like, nah, I've already done a biblical piece called The Silver Chalice. I'm not keeping doing that, you know, like I'm not gonna keep doing that. I don't want to get typecast. And I think a lot of actors are very scared to be typecast.
Yeah, because it's a thing.
It's a total thing.
I get on you all the time when you refer to an actor by their character name for what they're famous for.
You mean Luke Skywalker? I'm just joking.
Like how Jonathan Frakes is going to be in Fan Expo Boston. You or me? It's like, oh my god, they got Riker. I'm like, he has a name, Frank.
I know, but it's right. No, I'm just kidding. The man, but he's in so much as Riker now. It's like so many shows. But
it's still not the only thing
because he's in
ever
Lower
done.
Decks and Picard,
and he's directed a bunch of Star Trek too.
So much,
but Riker didn't direct those Star Trek episodes.
Jonathan Frakes did.
So that would be fun.
Yes, even though that would be fun. There'd be a lot more sex.
I get why actors are afraid to be typecast. It is very much a thing.
Really?
Yeah.
Damn. Yeah. Oh. No, it is. No, it really is. You know, it really is. So there's a lot to be said about this movie, especially with just the scale of it and how epic it is and how the effects are so well done, so that way it looks great the whole time. It's just an impressive movie, and I think that's one of the things that will, even if you're not fully into what's going on, you'll get from just watching it, you know, like you'll just be like, this is an impressive ass movie, you know. Like
I wonder how bad the recent one was from a few years ago. The one with Morgan
they tried
Freeman
to do Ben-Hur.
Yeah, they did.
Oh no,
it kind of came and went. No one
really
said paid it any much mind.
No one said shit. So I'm sure it wasn't great.
Oh man, I'm just imagining just like trying to do the Chariot race, but with like modern shortcuts. Just just do it on a green screen.
I think that's what I'm trying to say here is that like there's no moment where you're like, that feels lazy green screen here, let's look away. You're like, holy shit, that dude just fell off a real fucking horse, you know, like, and almost died. You know, like, oh, Charlton Heston is really taking that corner with that guy, you know, with 4 horses, you know, like, and they're slamming into each other. You're like, that's actually Charlton Heston doing that. And you're like, that's impressive as shit, you know, like, it is what makes you keep watching and just sit there being like, holy crap, they really did all this. Like, everything is so just like, whoa. Like,
because you had no other choice.
Yeah.
And some filmmakers still, like, keep to that degree. Like, Edgar Wright and Chris Nolan both sort of have that attitude. Just like, unless it's physically impossible, we're going to do it.
Yes. And I definitely will say that this is, I said Shakespearean earlier, but it's Odysseus, isn't it? It's just like, you know, we send we send this Odysseus out. He has big journey. Come back for revenge.
Yeah.
You know, like, and like lots of other, this is a big trope, you know, of being like, get sent out to do adventure, come back for revenge.
Yeah.
You know, like,
but it's just like
classic.
This is something I'm sure we'll touch on a lot. Just this whole like nuts and bolts filmmaking of just like blood, sweat, tears, work, stuff that you couldn't do otherwise or come out of it. And it's nice that we, like I said, with Nolan and Wright, that we still have filmmakers that still try and keep to that, which makes me really afraid about Oppenheimer. Just like, is Nolan about to fucking set off a nuclear bomb just to get a good shot of it? Please don't. I think we're giving Christopher Nolan too much power.
You're right. He will do whatever it takes to get the shot. And you're like, please don't. It's pretty funny because the director, William Wyler, is prolific here. You know, like the man is full of he passed away. Is he passed away?
I think he is.
Yeah. It died in 1981 at the age of 79. I was like, no way, because it says here something from 2018 that he got a credit for some reason. But it's like one of those things that the man was a Hollywood machine, and he was really pumping movies out. 77 credits to his name. And
I think you find that a lot with like the old school
where they were
studio
just
system where they were just fucking cranking them out.
And they were like, okay, I'm finished shooting this movie. They're like, okay, next week you're going to be on this one. Move over there. You can also find
how it like passed hands a lot in the writing phase, or like it even went through like Gore Vidal, who like refused to write a draft on it or like to continue working on it, and he got suspended.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Jesus.
Because that's the way it works. It's like, you gotta do your job. You were assigned to write this thing.
You gotta do
it's
this.
not like the whole like, I will write whatever I want.
He's also known for the other big one is of course Roman Holiday with Gregory Peck and Audrey Hepburn. That's his other big movie that I think led him. And he also did Funny Girl, which is also a very important movie. So it's one of those things that this guy, you know, is a huge part of film history for his direction. And I think his direction shows up so much in so many things. And I think that's one of the reasons why you should go back right now and watch Ben-Hur. I'm sure you're just listening, but you're like, I'll watch it. And you're like, no. Watch it so you understand how much Star Wars is referencing Ben-Hur constantly. Even lines are pulled from it.
It speaks to like my big eye roll, or like when Lucas ever gets defensive about Star Wars.
Yeah.
Like the big one that always makes me like groan is like, well, you don't understand. Star Wars came from nothing. I'm like, Star Wars came from nothing, George Lucas? From nothing. From nothing?
From nothing.
Come on.
Literal direct lines from Ben-Hur here, you know? And there's definitely shots from it that are just Ben-Hur,
came from nothing except all these old samurai films and westerns and old like classic epics and adventure serials. Came from nothing.
And I also said Batman and so many other media is referencing Ben-Hur, and that's why I'm saying, even though this is 100 on the list, this might be one of the more important ones on the list for a modern viewer to like understand, you know, like to watch and be like, oh, I see how so many of its successors are influenced by this, you know, like why they
this is like one of those foundational movies.
Yes, it's one of those things where it's like, you know, you watch Night of the Living Dead and you're like, oh man, he started some like real serious horror tropes here, you know, the horror shots here, and you see them in everyday movies now, you know, like all the time, shots from Night of the Living Dead. You will feel that way watching Ben-Hur.
Just like making the rules when the rules didn't exist yet.
Exactly. You'll be watching Ben-Hur and you'll be like, and it's so funny because so much of Tatooine is just the Jerusalem set from Ben-Hur, even with just like the camels walking by and like it's like the grandeur and the fullness of the set is definitely what they're trying to achieve in all the Star Wars movies, you know, like that, like it's all live,
but they definitely didn't have the budget for it. Like watch those like wide shots of Mos Eisley in the original cut, not the special editions, and it's pretty It's pretty stark.
Pretty stark.
Mos Eisley's pretty empty.
And then you do the special editions, and they're like, we filled it.
We filled it with a bunch of CG shit.
We filled it. We filled it up. And you're like, wait,
we filled it with a bunch of 90s CGI that does not blend well with these 1977 shots.
Oh my God. And I think that's another thing. There's not many green screen shots here. The only green screen shot that made me go like, was when they were on the floating raft, and there was still water, and they were on a raft. Like they still did the fucking raft. Yeah. They just definitely had shot the plate of the burning ships behind.
And there's also like, and this isn't like blue or green screen, but it is clearly like a painting or animated. The fucking shot of the North Star with the 3 cans thing.
Yes. That was one of the effects you were like, all right. All right. But
I hope you paid that painter well.
It's funny because we're saying how much people reference Ben-Hur, but there's also some like some references in Ben-Hur. Mm-hmm. Like especially there's some art references in the Jesus on the Hill. Like several artists have tried to do that, like that direct shot of like somebody looking from the bottom of the hill at Jesus sitting on the hill with everyone surrounding him. Like that's definitely has been done a million times in art, and it's like it's kind of a reference there, to be like, oh, literary reference here. Like art reference. And I think the same can be said for just the temples going on here. I think that's another thing. I think we talked about the sets, but like the temples they built for this fucking thing is incredible, especially Ben-Hur's house, and then when he's in Rome. Those are some impressive sets. You're like, holy shit, dog. Like they're gorgeous. They're just beautiful. But I think that's pretty much it for Ben-Hur. What do you got anything else?
I don't think so.
So guys, check it out. Check out the movie. We're going to be moving up the list. So this will be kind of our, we're not going to stop doing Filthy Casuals. Don't worry, but they will be less so because we want to do these instead. We want to,
more of a fallback, because sometimes as far as like pop culture is concerned, there's not much to talk about in like weeks.
Yeah, so we want to start to do this as a project, and basically, so you now watch Ben-Hur. Next up, Toy Story. So next week when you come in, we're talking Toy Story. So let's watch that again, rewatched on Disney Plus, and then we're gonna have some Toy Story talk next week.
It's a stark contrast. So that's gonna be like sort of the fun of tackling this list.
Exactly, is that there's gonna be some major whiplash going on here, but good ones. Definitely talking about like years and years of cinema here, and that's why I think this will be an important list. But guys, check out and support the show on any podcast platform. You're probably watching our beautiful faces on YouTube right now. Hit any of the buttons down below, any of them, except for hit any of them. Just and I don't care. You know what to do, and make the algorithm move. And basically find us everything about this podcast and articles by us on galaxyandgeek.com if you want to get deeper on a couple topics. And also if you want to check us out on our personal stuff, our Twitter and our Instagram, I'm Yep Frank on there,
Mod Karika,
and I have Yep Gundam, which is my Gundam page. If you want to check out some Gundam, I got new ones coming out every day.
Be an enabler.
And guys, really, thank you for watching the show, for listening. I really appreciate every listen. I'm serious about that. Like every single one of you that has listened this far, I wish I could hug you. And if you do see us at a con this summer or next summer, do hug us if you do listen to the show. And thank you guys so much, and I hope you have a great rest of your week.
See you next time.